At the start of the 1st century, a Roman legion on open ground was the most lethal killing machine the ancient world had ever produced. It was 20,000 professional soldiers, marching in lockstep, protected by interlocking shields and centuries of flawless tactical doctrine. This map of northern Europe shows the empire's borders actively pushing past the Rhine River. To Emperor Augustus, this waterway was no longer the edge of the known world. Rome spent 2 decades expanding eastward toward the Elbe, trying to mold the forested territory of Germania into a new province. So in 7 AD, Augustus sent administrator Publius Quintilius Varus into the woods to collect taxes, set up courts, and apply Roman law. Treating a vast hostile wilderness like a domesticated bureaucratic zone creates a massive strategic blind spot. Varus thought he was managing a compliant population. He didn't realize he was marching his men into an active war zone. To pull off this administration, Varus needed a local intermediary, and he found the perfect one in a Cheruscan nobleman named Arminius. Arminius had been taken hostage as a child and raised in Rome. He had served in the Roman cavalry, earned citizenship, and achieved the rank of a knight. He knew exactly how the legions fought and how they thought. But Arminius had his own objective. He used his position at Varus's right hand to quietly stitch together an alliance of Germanic tribes that had previously spent generations fighting each other, uniting them under a single goal: destroying the Roman occupation. In the late summer of 9 AD, Arminius sprang the trap. He fed Varus a false report of a distant uprising. Against the warnings of other tribal leaders, Varus turned his column off the prepared paved Roman roads, taking a detour directly into deep country. A Roman legion derived its strength from its infrastructure. By leaving the roads and marching into unbroken terrain, Varus surrendered the advantages that made his army superior, allowing a vastly out-equipped enemy to dictate the exact terms of engagement. This top-down schematic illustrates how standard Roman infantry blocks relied entirely on order. In an open field, they could form an iron square, geometric blocks of soldiers that could close ranks, lock shields, and systematically grind down an opponent. But as the column pushed deeper into the Teutoburg Forest, the landscape closed in. Old-growth trees, broken ravines, and narrow defiles forced the Romans to stretch their lines out for miles. There was simply no room to deploy into a fighting formation. Then the weather turned. Relentless downpours loosened the earth and swelled the streams. The heavy wooden carts of the baggage train sank deep into the mud, slowing the march to a crawl, while the water softened the legionaries' heavy wicker shields. That is when the spears came out of the trees. Small bands of Germanic warriors rushed from the cover of the dense woods, striking the straggling line and vanishing back into the green before the Romans could counterattack. Bleeding casualties they couldn't return, Varus ordered his men to burn the baggage train just to lighten their load. Arminius avoided fighting 3 legions in a street battle. Instead, he weaponized the terrain, using the Romans' massive size, heavy equipment, and strict doctrine against them. The second day brought deeper woods and larger waves of attackers. The Romans managed to build a defensive marching camp on a rare patch of open ground, but the ramparts were thrown up in a panic. As soon as morning broke, the relentless assaults resumed. The psychological strain of fighting an invisible enemy in claustrophobic conditions began to wear them down. Men who had spent years operating as a single, cohesive unit started looking for ways out. The rigid discipline that held a legion together was actively cracking. That collapse of command became obvious when the officer, Numonius Valla, realized the situation was hopeless. He abandoned the infantry and attempted to ride his horsemen out of the forest toward the Rhine. They were chased down and slaughtered. A professional army is only as strong as its collective discipline. Once that structure fractures, the tactical advantage vanishes, and the soldiers devolve into a scattered mob. By day 3, the exhausted survivors stumbled toward a wooded hill near modern-day Kalkriese. Here, the landscape formed a natural bottleneck, flanked on one side by a steep rising slope, and on the other by a murky peat bog. This tactical map reveals the architecture of the fatal funnel Arminius engineered. Along the base of the hill, his coalition had built a long earthen wall, artificially narrowing the corridor against the wetlands to trap the Romans completely. As the miles-long Roman column was squeezed into this corridor, They were completely compressed. They couldn't turn around, and they didn't have the space to mount a forward charge. From the earthen wall, warriors rained javelins down into the dense press of soldiers, while thousands more struck the exposed flank from the edge of the bog. Seeing his army systematically annihilated, Governor Varus fell on his own sword, and the 3 legions were wiped out to the last man. Teutoburg lacked the open field maneuvers of a traditional battle. It was a meticulously engineered 3-day execution designed to exploit every weakness in Rome's tactical doctrine. The physical destruction was staggering. The enemy captured the golden eagles of the 17th, 18th, and 19th legions, the sacred standards that represented the soul of the Roman military. When the news reached Rome, Emperor Augustus reportedly tore his clothes and wandered his palace halls in a state of shock, begging Varus to give him back his legions. In mourning, the Roman military permanently retired those 3 unit numbers. They would never be issued again. The slaughter in the forest killed Rome's appetite for eastern expansion. Augustus completely abandoned the project of creating a German province, and the border hardened along the Rhine River, remaining there for the next 400 years. Arminius achieved what entire empires could not. He united a fractured people and engineered a trap so total that it broke the back of the most formidable army on earth. The architect of Rome's greatest catastrophe didn't come from the wilderness. He was a weapon the Romans had spent years training, arming, and bringing into their own ranks.